l'onorevole Louise Miller-Frost. Hello, Louise. Thank you for coming on to Radio Italia 1 Adelaide.
Buongiorno.
Buongiorno, grazie. And I called you honourable because that's the title we would give to a parliamentarian normally in Italian.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, cool. So, you've been in Parliament now for about 3 years. It's one term.
Yeah, almost 3 years.
And in fact, we can talk about that later. There's an election coming up very soon. We don't quite know when.
Nope.
But the topic, an important topic for today's conversation, is International Women's Day, which will be on the 8th of March. This interview will go to air on the 7th, on Friday. So let's talk about initially the importance of this day and then some of the topics of relevance to women internationally. So what would you be doing on the 8th of March this year?
On the 7th of March, I had the International Women's Day breakfast, and I have another International Women's Day lunch coming up. The first one, we heard Rachel Perkins speaking about her mother's support of her father, and her father is, of course, Charles Perkins, the very well-known Aboriginal activist who made such a difference to the country. But it was very much about her mother's role supporting the family and supporting him in his work and the impact that had. So that was amazing. The lunchtime one, which we haven't got to yet, I will be talking as well. So I'm about to give a speech. On International Women's Day, I will be working as always. So it's very much a 7-day-a-week job. So I will be out and about in the community.
Yes. So interesting. Let's talk about for a little bit this topic of the caring for people who are sick or elderly, or the combination of the two. It mostly, just like caring for families, mostly occurs for women. What ideas, what concepts came out from this conversation?
Look. To use Rachel's joke, she said that when her parents fell in love, her mother said that she knew that her father loved her when he said he wanted to look after her for the rest of his life. But actually what happened from that day on was she looked after him. So she used that as a bit of a joke. Of those relationships that, a good relationship, both people are looking after each other. But you're absolutely right that a lot of the caring, not all by any means, but a lot of the caring does fall to women, initially looking after children, perhaps also looking after elderly parents. And that has an impact. It can be incredibly rewarding emotionally, but in terms of financial and physical health and mental health, it can be very demanding on women. My background, I think I used to run Catherine House, which is a women's homelessness service. And so we would have a lot of older women coming to Catherine House because they were homeless. And often you would look back at their careers, and the one thing, people become homeless for many reasons. The one thing that they have in common almost exclusively is poverty, because if you have money, you have options. So these women would come and they would have perhaps been that generation who had to leave work when they got married, or had to leave work when they got pregnant, or had to leave work when they had their first child, may never have gone back. Or if they did, they might have gone back into a lower paid job that was part-time or casual. The lower wages and the big gaps meant that they didn't have much savings. And when compulsory super came in, they didn't get much superannuation either. So by the time they turn up at a place like Catherine House, or other places that similarly do work with homeless people, they have had decades worth of no income coming in, no superannuation, no savings, and it's really difficult to financially recover as an older person if you don't have any money and you're now homeless. So the caring duties do have an impact on people. We also know that carers are more likely to have physical and mental health issues themselves from the sheer strain of,
Yeah.
perhaps lifting their loved one, helping them walk, all of that sort of thing that is a physical strain.
Yes. So, well, let's explain a little bit. What does Catherine House do?
So Catherine House is a women's homelessness service. Some of the women come from a domestic violence situation, and that is a fairly large reason why women become homeless. Sometimes that domestic violence situation was a childhood home that they grew up in. Sometimes it was a long time ago, but sometimes it is the relationship that they have just left and escaped. But as I said, people do become homeless for other reasons as well. Catherine House has emergency accommodation where they have a caseworker, so they provide a bedroom, 3 meals a day, a safe place, and a whole load of sort of, toiletries and all sorts of things that women need because they don't have anything. They've literally got nothing. But they also really importantly provide a caseworker for each woman, and that caseworker will help them work through whatever their issues are, health-wise, perhaps legal. There might be some issues around the separation. There might be issues around custody of children. There might be outstanding debts from electricity bills that they haven't been able to pay, or parking fines, or all sorts of things. And they actually work with the women to resolve all of those issues, plus the issues that have come as a result of being homeless. So we know that, if you don't have a mental illness or a physical illness, when you become homeless and start rough sleeping, you probably will have fairly soon because of poor diet, being, constantly hypervigilant because you don't feel safe, so you're not getting good sleep, all of those sorts of things. And of course, really importantly, they help them find accommodation. So an accommodation outcome. Catherine House has some fantastic outcomes. There are women who have, rebuilt their lives, started their own businesses, got jobs, got full-time jobs, gone to university, all sorts of things. But they deal with women where they're coming from, and they help women with the challenges and with the dreams that they have for their own lives.
Yes, and I know you're also chief executive of the St Vincent de Paul Society in South Australia. What gender-specific issues arose during that time?
So Vinnie's, yes, I ran Vinnie's during the COVID pandemic of all things. And Vinnie's has a number of different services that provide really around poverty, homelessness and disadvantage. So they do have the men's shelter on Whitmore Square, which people might know quite well. They also have a domestic violence service for women, children and their pets. And the pets is actually a really important thing because we know in a domestic violence situation, pets are often victims as well. And they're often used as a way of manipulating a woman to stay in a dangerous situation. So being able to take the pet with them was an important service. And I think it is still the only service that provides that at a emergency accommodation level. On top of that, they have, I think it's about 10 Fred's vans across the state. So that's providing meals and groceries to people. And of course, the general work that Vinnie's do, which is helping people in the community who are doing it tough. So the Vinnie's has about 63, they're called conferences, they're little self-organising volunteer groups who meet with people in their local community and help them out with practical help. So it might be a supermarket voucher, but also help them in terms of social isolation. So they talk to them, they befriend them, they are there to listen. And we know that social isolation is such a it's such a public health issue. Like, it has such enormous impacts on us as individuals and as a community. And of course, I shouldn't forget the 32 op shops across the state, which is which was fantastic to learn all about retail. But, again, they are providing a whole range. So keeping good quality clothes and products out of landfill, providing people with access to good quality, low price products. But also, we know there's recreational shoppers out there who want to find a bargain and something that's a bit different from your normal shops.
Yes, and I also discovered that sometimes people buy clothes and take them directly to the op shop, because you'll see them still with their labels from the retail shop. Okay, well, now let's move from the items and the issues you've discussed to the policy world where you are. What has been happening, or what is happening to deal with some of those issues in the policy world?
Mm-hmm. So, look, there's been an awful lot, but I'll start by saying the Labor federal government has, for the first time ever, got a gender-balanced caucus. So we have about 51%, 52% females in Parliament between the Senate and the lower house on the Labor side, on the government side. And that changes conversations. That changes it from women being a kind of and what about the women, to actually being, okay, this whatever our policy is, how does it work for men? How does it work for women? We're dealing with both sides, and it's not an afterthought. So that makes an enormous difference. We have reduced the gender pay gap, and that has that whole flow-on effect in terms of not just your income now, but your ability to save, your ability to buy a property, your ability to get superannuation and hopefully not become homeless when you're older. And some of that has been about the industrial relations laws that make it easier for casuals and part-timers to become permanent, so permanent part-time. That gives people both security, but also the ability to then go to the bank and say, I have a permanent job. I'm not a casual, I have a permanent job. Therefore, you're much more likely to be considered for a mortgage. We've also increased the pay rates for some of the lower paid workers that we know are predominantly female professions, so aged care, childcare, for instance, and nursing. We've increased the expanded paid parental leave, so that women are now getting 26 weeks or 6 months. But also, really importantly, there is a portion of that can be taken by the other partner.
Yeah.
So whoever is I should say parental leave, not maternity leave, whoever is the primary partner, be that the male or the female, gets the primary amount of parental leave. But it can be shared with the other partner, and there is, I think it's 2 weeks on a use it or lose it. And that's about trying to really normalise parental leave as part of somebody's career, not something that will be, held against them as making them an unreliable worker. So we know that men spending time with young children, with their babies, is really, really important for that child's security and attachment within the family. So enabling that to happen is good for the entire family. What else? Goodness, cheaper childcare. And I always, when we talk about cheaper childcare, I always think this is actually a family's issue, not a women's issue, because it does enable families to make that decision about whether both parents want to go back to work, both parents want to make their career, and that's a family decision for each family. But having cheaper childcare makes it easier for people to make that decision. What else? Goodness, we've acted on all 55 recommendations of the Respect at Work report. So you'd remember that came out of the last Parliament. We have increased domestic violence leave. So we now have 10 days paid domestic violence leave. for any victims of domestic violence. That makes a huge difference because it enables people who are experiencing violence to make a decision to leave without having to give up paid work. So if you need to make time to go and look at a house, to go and deal with your legal issues about the separation, to go and talk to, a medico or talk to the domestic violence services, it gives you the opportunity to actually do that without losing income. And that poverty trap that previously existed, where if you were going to take time off work to go and do that, you would lose money, was another reason that we know that people often stay. And then I'll just do one more. There's so many more I could talk about, but one more that's really important, and that's the endometriosis clinic. So we have one down at Glenelg. It's at the Thrive General Practice, and this is such an important clinic. So we have, I think it's about 22 across the country, and they're brand new, all opened up in the last couple of years. Endometriosis affects, we think, about 1 in 7 women, and often women are not diagnosed for 7 to 9 years, and they bounce around the medical system and they get told things like, well, periods are painful, you're just going to have to live with it, that's what everyone has. And it often takes that huge length of time to get a diagnosis, let alone actually start getting effective treatment. And so the practice down there is multidisciplinary. They've got exercise physiology, dietitians, GPs, and outreach to all of the relevant specialists, so gynecologists, etc. And they do amazing work. What I hear from clients who've been there is it's absolutely life-changing.
Yes, indeed. It's a lot of interesting initiatives, and the endometriosis is a very important topic. I know through not direct experience, but some relatives who have gone through it. Yeah. So, what we said, you've been 3 years, the first term in Parliament,
Yes.
and coming up for renewal, so to speak, renewal of the contract.
Hopefully.
I remember actually the last time it was quite a strong field of women, mostly women. I think the Greens candidate was a male.
The Greens candidate was male.
Yes.
Lovely Jeremy, he gets forgotten.
And there's at least 2 women going this time.
3.
At least 3. Okay, I know, I guess, of
Councillor Joanna Wells from Mitcham Council is the Greens candidate.
Oh, okay. So what's your learning curve been in this first term of Parliament? How have you found it? Surprises, things that have been unusual?
Look, many things are exactly as you imagine them. Parliament is how you imagine. I would say that I enjoy question time a lot more than I thought I might. It is it's interesting sitting in the middle of it and hearing the banter and understanding the jokes and the way, the back and forth, and understanding, who's saying what. That's been very interesting. The committee work that we do, I obviously knew that committees existed. The way they work has been fascinating. So I sat on the committee that did the gambling reform report. We've done a report on the Carers Act, so a review of the Carers Act, and we've just been looking at the effectiveness of intervention orders in there. They've got various names in various states for domestic violence. So that report's just recently come out. And I was also on a law enforcement committee that looked at things like were the various legal law enforcement agencies sufficiently resourced to address things like drug importation and importation of chemical precursors of drugs, online child exploitation, that sort of thing. So some really serious topics. My work back here in Adelaide, so I'm only in Canberra about 18 weeks a year, and a sitting week is 4 days. My time back here in Adelaide is very much 7 days a week, because I try and get round to as many as many community events as possible. And of course, they almost always happen at night or on the weekend.
Weekends, yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of the other work that we do through my office. So my office is based here in Glenelg. There are staff there 9 to 5, 5 days a week, and we get thousands of emails and phone calls and a few walk-ins, but mostly the
Yeah.
phone calls and emails with people who've got challenges that they want us to help them with. And that's very much feeds back into my previous career, working in health, working in local government, working in Catherine House and Vinnie's, about providing that practical assistance on the ground for people's challenges and issues. So can't help everyone with everything, unfortunately, but we have had some amazing outcomes for people, and it's an absolute privilege to hear people's stories, hear about where they are and what's happening in their life.
Yes, and I guess that often the people that come into your office are asking about issues that are not of your competence. They're probably state or local levels, but that happens across the board. Yes, yes.
That's correct. And look, I door knock all the time. So I've been door knocking for 4 years, and that's often the same. I guess my advantage, having worked in local government as well as working in state government, is I can talk to you about pretty much anything. So I can talk to you about your significant tree or traffic engineering or planning or libraries, because I've managed all of them. So yeah, I have some great chats.
And the off-street parking is, I think, another big topic nowadays.
And off-street parking, or worse,
Actually,
on-street parking. That's
and
the
it's
worst.
been going on for years. Actually, okay, we'll probably go over time now. Several years ago, during one state election, it might have been Stephen Mulligan said the topic comes up most is street parking, on-street parking. That was an issue, and it's getting apparently more and more difficult.
Yeah. I'd take it to overdevelopment. So when one house gets knocked down and a couple put on, sometimes up to 5, that is the challenge. So then you get not enough off-street parking, so people are parking on the street. Then you get the traffic engineering issues because the rubbish truck can't get down the road. You get flooding because the stormwater hasn't been upgraded, and there's less soft areas now for water to drain in, because instead of a big garden with trees, you've now got 3 very small gardens and lots of housing. So yeah, it all ties up together, and it's a challenge.
Oh. Well, okay, thank you very much, Louise Miller-Frost. It's not the first time we've chatted, but it's good to have a catch up. And I guess you have to go off to your next appointment for today.
Good. Lovely.
So thank you
so much.
Thank you.